Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome in to today's video. In today's video, I am going to be doing a tier list based upon every single survivor perk in Dead by Daylight. Here we have insane, great, decent, poor, and very bad. These perks are going to be sorted out into where I think they deserve to be. And of course, this is going to be my personal opinion. So if at any point you disagree or agree, be sure to leave a comment and let's have a bit of a discussion. Every perk we review, we are thinking about that perk individually. We are not thinking about this perk in a perk build, because that then is not actually rating that perk itself. That is rating that perk in terms of a perk build. So keep that in mind. But man, I will just say this. There is a lot of perks. Now, we are going to go through these perks relatively quite quickly because we have got a lot to go through. We're going to keep it simple, not go too deep into them, and we're just going to go straight off the bat and start rating them. Ace in the Hole is a perk where if you run it when you go to a chest, for instance, and you open the chest and find an item, it is very likely that you will be able to get a very rare add-on to that item. It does also have a slight chance to add in a second item add-on to that item. You can also run Ace in the Hole, and if you have a very good add-on on your item and you escape, you still get to keep that add-on on your item. So this perk is literally just about item add-ons. So I'm going to be chucking this one into the very bad. It's not really worth going to buy or leveling for. Next up, we have a very extremely meta and popular perk, Adrenaline. So with Adrenaline, once your team finishes that last gen, you actually heal 1 health state, and you also get a sprint burst for 5 seconds, which is really good. Now, one cool thing with this is that it actually ignores exhaustion. So say if you was to use life or dead hard, and you dead hard and you're exhausted, you can still use Adrenaline once you're exhausted. This perk's very good. It can get you out of chases. It can also heal you if you are in the dying state on the floor. You can actually get up from that. Say if you are crawling and the killer closes the hatch and you're the last person, you actually can get up from that as well, which is quite cool. This perk is very useful and has saved a lot of people in the final chase of Dead by Daylight. One downside to using Adrenaline though is that because Adrenaline causes exhaustion, you then can't use dead hard, life, or any other exhaustion perk, because you are now exhausted. It's no surprise to me that I'm going to be putting this one into the insane list. A lot of people love it. It is very good, and it's definitely a perk that you should consider leveling for. Following up from that one, we have Aftercare. With Aftercare, when you unhook a survivor or they unhook you, you get to see each other's auras. So say if Aftercare is active and you get hooked again, all of that then resets. This perk is useful to tell where your teammates are, but it is kind of just a worse version of Bond/Empathy. And I don't like how it resets. So in my opinion, I'm going to be putting Aftercare into poor. Next up, we have Alert. With Alert, if the killer breaks a wall, damages a gen or a pallet, you get to see the killer's aura for a few seconds. It's really useful because you're going to be getting quite a bit of use out of this. You can tell where the killer is, and you can also tell who the killer is, which can really help you out. I like how informative this perk is, so I'm going to be putting this perk in at great. Following up from that one, we have Any Means Necessary. With Any Means Necessary, you can reset a dropped pallet at max level at once every 60 seconds. Now, the only downside to this perk is that once the killer knows you have this perk, they are going to break every single pallet you drop. So it's quite easily countable, and it of course has the 60-second cooldown. I like the concept behind this perk, so I'm going to be putting this perk in at decent. Next up, we have Auto Diadact. With Auto Diadact, you start the game with a penalty to healing survivors. It takes longer. And for every skill check that you complete on healing a survivor, you get another token. Each token that you get is 15% bonus if you get a successful skill check on healing a survivor. You don't, however, get any bonus points if you are using a medkit. Using this perk, you start off with a penalty for healing, but then also after a while get a slight bonus progression with healing. Not really worth it at all in my opinion. And for the penalty it gives, it doesn't really come with any benefit really, to be honest. So I think this perk is pretty terrible, and this is going to be going into the very bad. I would not recommend using this perk or leveling it. After that, we have Babysitter. With Babysitter, when you unhook a survivor, they do not leave any scratch marks or blood trails for a couple of seconds. And not only that, you actually see the killer's aura, and the killer sees your aura for 4 seconds. With this perk, it promotes you to leave your teammate who you've just unhooked instead of healing them. Not only that, it also brings attention to yourself, so it's very risky. As a perk, I don't rate it, and I'm going to be putting this one into the very bad. After this, we have balanced landing. With balanced landing, if you fall, you receive a sprint burst for 3 seconds, running at 150% of your normal running speed. It also reduces your stagger when you fall, and also makes you silent when you're falling. You don't make any screaming noises. This perk is very dependent on map design and your knowledge of that map as well. If you are playing on a map like Shelter Woods, for instance, that doesn't have any fall zones at all apart from the shack, so that's rendering this perk useless in that one. In my opinion, this is one of the lower exhaustion perks in terms of how good they are, so I'm going to be putting this one in at decent. Then we have Nancy's Better Together. With Better Together, once you are repairing a generator, all other teammates can see the generator's aura that you are repairing. On top of this, if you are repairing a generator and the killer downs a teammate, you can see all other survivors' auras for about 10 seconds. It signals to your teammate what gens you are on, so you can push gens faster, and you can also see the auras of your teammates for 10 seconds when they go down while you're on a generator. I'm going to be putting Better Together in at decent. Moving on, we now have Blood Pact. With Blood Pact, if you heal the Obsession or the Obsession heals you, you both see each other's auras. Once you or the Obsession heal each other, you do get an increase in movement speed of up to 7% for the entire match, as long as that survivor is within 16 meters of you. This perk is only useful if the teammate does stick by you at all times, and chances are if you're playing in a solo queue, this isn't going to happen. You do get a slight bit of information where that teammate is once you've healed them, but again, this is one of the more porous sort of aura reading perks that is for survivors. On its own, I don't really rate this perk that much, so I'm going to be putting this perk into the poor. Following on from that one, we have Boil Over. With Boil Over, you make it harder for a killer to bring you to a hook by wiggling a lot more, not on meter, but literally physically. You do also block the killer's ability to see hooks very close by. So on its own, this perk is quite poor. And if a killer can see a hook, this perk doesn't really do anything. So I'm going to be putting this perk into the very bad. Then we have Bond. With Bond, you get to see auras of teammates that are nearby within a range of 36 meters. This is a very good informative aura reading perk that can really help you out to understand where the killer is or where your teammates are and if they are doing generators, etc. If you are playing solo, this is a great perk as well. And I'm going to be putting this perk in at great. After that, we have Borrow Time. With Borrow Time, if you unhook a survivor in the killer's terror radius, they get an extra protection hit, essentially, where they'll have to mend. This perk is very, very common in most people's builds and also is a great perk against tunnelers. However, the Wraith, when he's in cloak mode, and several other killers can counter it, which is the only downside to it, but doesn't really take away the fact that this perk is just great all round. Your teammates will be very thankful if you do have it. Sometimes killers might accidentally tunnel you toward the end of the game due to the nature of the gameplay and how it pans out. Is this a perk worth leveling? Absolutely. This is a very, very good perk. Next up is Botany Knowledge. Healing speed and healing efficiency is increased by 33%. So you get to heal faster and your medkit, for instance, will last a little bit longer. This is a decent perk in certain perk builds, but however, on its own, isn't really that great. Of course, if you're not running a medkit, then you don't get the second benefit of that perk. Following on from that one, we have Breakdown. With Breakdown, when you get unhooked, that hook breaks, and that hook stays broken for 180 seconds. You also get to see the killer's aura for a couple of seconds as well. Is this a perk worth leveling to chuck into your build? I don't think so. You might be able to get a bit more use out of this perk in a Survivor Friends, but it's not worth putting in your build, to be honest. So I'm going to be putting this perk in it very bad. Moving on from that, we have Breakout. You have to run near a killer that is holding a survivor on their shoulder, and you get a little speed boost as well. And also, the survivor on the killer's shoulder then also gets 20% extra wiggle speed. This is a prime example of this perk being useful in a perk build. On its own, not very good. You're also putting yourself in a fair bit of danger going near the killer as well. Majority of the time, teammates are going to go down on the other side of the map and you're just not going to get any use out of this perk whatsoever. And we're putting this one into very bad. After that, we have Buckle Up. With Buckle Up, you can see how recovered a survivor is on the floor in a dying state. They start off red, which means that they've not got much progression, and then proceeds to get to white, meaning that they've almost maxed out their recovery. And then when you heal that person from the dying state into injured, you and that survivor get to see the killer's aura for a couple of seconds. Can be useful, and there's definitely situations where this perk would be nice to have. If you have a killer that doesn't slug and just straight away picks up the survivors, then this perk doesn't really benefit you whatsoever. Is that going to be a perk that you can use regularly? I personally don't think so. It's not really worth putting in your build in my opinion, so I'll be putting buckle up in at poor. Next up we have built to last. With built to last, once you fully deplete a medkit, flashlight, etc., after 10 seconds it refills a fair amount of its charge, meaning that you can use it again, and can really help you out if you are using a medkit. It can allow you to get some more heals. A flashlight, for instance, for medkit players and stuff like that, it could be pretty useful. So I'm going to be putting built to last in at decent. After that we have calm spirit. With calm spirit, it's a lot less likely that you're going to alert crows. It also stops if you would at all scream, for instance, against doctor, or maybe they have infectious fright on. This perk is a little bit dependent on what killer you're facing. Is this a perk worth leveling? This is up to you, so I'm going to be putting this one in at decent. Next up we have Steve's camaraderie. With camaraderie, once you are in the struggle phase on the hook, if a teammate comes within 16 meters of you, your timer on the hook is paused completely for 34 seconds at max level. This can be very, very useful if, say, a killer is really hard camping you, face camping you, for instance. However, if the killer isn't that sort of scummy killer, this perk isn't really going to benefit you that much at all. Now remember, this only helps you out on the struggle phase, and the teammate does have to be near you. Again, another situational perk, which isn't ideal. You're not going to see an awful lot of use out of this perk. So in my opinion, I'm going to be putting this one in at poor. Next up, we have Kate's Dance With Me. With Dance With Me, when you fast vault a locker or a pallet or a window, etc., you leave no scratch marks for 3 seconds. This has a cooldown of 40 seconds at max level. I quite like this perk. This does benefit me sometimes, and I think can really confuse new killers. I'm in between decent and poor. I'm going to put it into poor on its own, but it's quite a high poor, almost decent in my opinion. After that, we have Dark Sense. When you complete a generator, you see the killer's aura for 5 seconds. When the last generator is completed, you see where the killer is for a little bit longer as well. Again, another useful aura reading informative perk. However, this is only used when you complete a generator. I think this perk deserves to be indecent. Just after that one, we have Dead Hard. With Dead Hard, if you are injured, you can dash forward, avoiding damage, and it is an exhaustion perk. With Dead Hard, this is extremely useful to get out of chases or get to a pallet, for instance, or a window. It does require extremely good use of timing, though. Can get screwed over a little bit due to the killer's latency. Of course, exhaustion perks really do depend on your playstyle, but is this a perk worth leveling? I think absolutely. It is a very good perk and one that you should definitely consider. So I'm going to be putting this one in at great. After that, we have Decisive Strike, also known as D-Strike for any of you. With Decisive Strike, if you have just got off the hook and the killer picks you up or grabs you again within 60 seconds, you have a chance to stun the killer with a skill check. And then when you hit that, you get to stun the killer and run away. It does increase the chance of you also being an obsession, but it is a great get out of jail card, especially against any killer that is tunneling. So you do also find that sometimes killers accidentally tunnel or feel like they have to tunnel toward the end of the game due to the game's circumstances. This is a great perk. Is it in the insane category though? I don't think so, due to the nature of the killer that you're facing. If they're not tunneling, it might not be that great, but this is a very good perk nonetheless. So I'm putting this one in at great. After that, we have Deja Vu. With Deja Vu, when you spawn into the match, you get to see where the closest 3 generators are to you for 60 seconds at max level. On top of this, if you are holding a map and you have Deja Vu, you do also get to see where other objectives are as well. In my opinion, this perk is really quite bad. This perk would only be useful for beginners. Not only that, I think if you are looking for a gen aura perk, there is better perks to use. You can also see the lights upon generators, which are useful. So I think this is a pretty bad perk. It's not really worth getting. Moving on from that one, we have Deliverance. With Deliverance, if you unhook a survivor, the next time you get hooked, you can absolutely unhook yourself. But then you are also broken for 60 seconds at max level. Great perk if you haven't been hooked until the end of the match. This can be really, really ridiculously useful. However, if you get hooked first, then this perk is useless. So, because then you go straight to struggle. So that's the very big downside to this perk. This one's quite a tricky one, in at decent. After that, we have Desperate Measures. With Desperate Measures, you can increase the healing and unhooking speeds by up to 14% at max level for each injured, hooked, or dying survivor. Toward maybe the end of the game when you've lost a teammate or most people are injured, you can get a fair bit of speed boost from healing. and unhooking. However, if your team are bossing it, this perk doesn't really help you out. Again, this is one that kind of depends on how the game pans out. I'm going to be putting this one in at decent due to the nature of this perk. Following on from that one, we have Detective's Hunch. After a generator is completed, the auras of generators, chests, and totems within 64 meters at max level are shown to you for about 10 seconds. I think this perk is great in terms of if the killer has a hex that you're trying to find. This can be really, really useful because you can see where totems are. And not only that, of course, you can see where the last few generators are or chests are, for instance. I think this perk is pretty decent. You get a lot of use out of it. It's not ridiculously OP, but it is a bit of a useful, informative perk. So I'm going to be putting this one in at decent. After this, we have Distortion. With Distortion, you start the match with 3 tokens. And whenever the killer would normally read your aura, now this can be very varied based upon if the killer has, for instance, barbecue and chili, any other aura reading perks. And whenever that token is used, you don't have any scratch marks and your aura isn't shown to the killer for about 10 seconds. However, it doesn't activate if you are in the dying state on the floor. But I think with Distortion, there might be times where this perk gets used kind of when you don't really want it to. I think if you're trying to play immersed, this is a pretty useful perk. Sometimes will be very good and sometimes will be a bit poor. Is that perk going to be great for you in your perk build? It's varied. I'm going to be putting Distortion in at decent. After that, we have Diversion. With Diversion, you need to be in the killer's terror radius for 45 seconds, and after that, you get to throw a pebble, which makes a loud notification noise and can distract the killer. Now, the only killers that will regularly fall for this are newer killers, and also, I really don't like the fact that you have to be in the killer's terror radius for 45 seconds. That is a very, very, very long time. Is this a perk that you're going to use in your most common normal build? Absolutely not. It might be a little bit better if you didn't have to be in the killer's terror radius for so long, but that is a big drawback. So I'm going to be putting this perk in at very bad. It's a meme build. Next up, we have Empathy. With Empathy, you get to see dying and injured survivors' auras at max level up to 128 meters. Now, this is, again, a very useful aura informative perk, and it is a really, really useful perk. It can be great in if you're playing on your own, because you can see where survivors are to get heals, etc., or to heal them, and you can roughly make a judgment of where the killer is if a survivor is running around like crazy. Now, of course, with this one, you're only going to get use out of this if the teammates are injured or in the dying state. If they're full health, you're not going to get use out of it, which is the only downside, but it's still pretty good, to be honest. I'm putting this one into great. After that, we have Fixated. With Fixated, you walk quite a bit faster, 20% to be exact, and you can also see your scratch marks. I think the most benefit out of this perk is probably the fact that you get to walk a lot faster. Kind of depends on your playstyle, but I'm in between poor and decent, and it's useful for beginners because you get to see your scratch marks and figure out what's going on. But at high level gameplay, you're not really caring about that side of the perk. I personally am going to put this into poor. After that, we have Flip Flop. With Flip Flop, 50% of your recovery rate of you recovering on the floor is then automatically added when the killer picks you up into the wiggle meter. Again, this is another perk that would be good in a perk build, but on its own, you aren't really going to get that much use out of. Again, if the killer isn't slugging and they're just straight away picking you up, this perk's useless. It may at some points, very rarely, be able to get you off the shoulder of the killer. Again, this is better in a Survivor Friends, but it's not that great on its own. So I'm going to be putting this one in at poor. After that, we have For the People. With For the People, if a teammate is injured or in the dying state, you can essentially absorb their damage and heal them 1 health state. This perk can call for some extremely crazy good outplays and great experiences, but you do then also become broken for 90 seconds, meaning that you can't get healed. This perk would be useful if a teammate is getting tunneled and you haven't been hooked, for instance. This gives them a second chance. This perk is quite situational, however, so in terms of getting use out of this on a regular basis, I don't think you're going to be getting that much use out of it. It's one of those perks that are like, most of the time you're not really going to notice, but can be really, really useful when it works. All in all, I think this perk deserves a spot in the decent list. Moving on from that one, we have Head On from Jane. With Head On, once you are in a locker, after 3 seconds, this perk becomes activated. If you rush out of the locker in a sprint, you can essentially stun that killer. If they're holding a teammate, you can cause them to drop that survivor, but then you are also exhausted. The exhaustion bit is the bit of a problem with this perk. This perk's more for memes, and you become a bit distracted when you're using this perk. Like, you always try your best to get this use out of this perk. It's fun, it's good in a meme build. On its own, not really going to help you out. Not only that, if you're in a solo queue, your teammates aren't really going to pay attention to where you are in that locker and run toward that area. It's useful in a Swift, not in a solo queue. I like the perk, but in terms of is it worth leveling for? Absolutely not. It doesn't really help you out, and it puts you in a lot of danger. So I'm going to be putting this one into very bad. After that, we have Hope. With Hope, once the exit gates are powered, you get a 7% increase in speed for 120 seconds. Again, this is another situational perk. That means that you have to get to the end game to get any use out of it. Is this a perk worth leveling for? It might help you out if you was in a chase at the end of the game, but other than that, not really. I'm going to be putting this one in at poor. After that, we have Inner Strength from Nancy. If you are injured, you have to cleanse a totem and then jump into a locker. And after 8 seconds, you then automatically heal 1 health state. I've changed my mind about this perk. I think this perk deserves to be decent or great. Now that I think about it, this perk is quite good because it does also promote you to get rid of totems. I think if you're looking to survive, this is a great perk. I think it does distract you a little bit, causes you not to want to play when you're injured. I think that this perk deserves a place in the great. Moving on from that one, we have Iron Will. With Iron Will at max level, you are absolutely silent when injured. This is a very meta perk and one that I absolutely love. And I'm sure a lot of you really kind of know that by now. I think is the best perk in the game. It allows you to play when you're injured. When you're injured without this perk, it's a lot more dangerous because not only because you're injured, not only that, I can play when I'm injured when I have Iron Will. Not so much when you don't. Where am I going to put this on the list? Do I think that you should level this perk and get this? Absolutely. This perk is insanely good. If you've not used this perk, get it. It is insane. Great perk. After that, we have Kindred. With Kindred, if you are on the hook and the killer is in proximity of 16 meters, all other teammates get to see where each other are. And not only that, if another survivor is injured and the killer is in a 16-meter radius, everyone gets to see where each other are. This is a very good perk, great for solo queues because you don't know who's getting the save. If someone's getting the save, you can do a gen. If no one else is going for it, you can go for it. And you can also see where the killer is and if they're camping. It's a very useful perk. Is this a perk worth leveling? Absolutely. This is hard. I'm between great and insane. But you know what? I think this perk is brilliant for so many reasons. And it's a perk that you do get use out of. So, in my opinion, is Kindred worth leveling? Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to put this in at insane because it gives you so much information and you get a lot of use out of it. It is a great perk that you should definitely consider having in your build. With Leader, you speed up other teammates' efficiency and speed with practically doing pretty much almost everything. Cleansing, unhooking, sabotaging, exit gate opening, chest, etc. with up to 25%, as long as you are within 8 meters of them. This perk helps out your team, not you so much. I like the concept to this perk, how it kind of helps your teammate out a little bit, but it does require you to be near them. I think this deserves a spot in the decent list. Okay, and next up we have Left Behind. With Left Behind, when you are the last survivor remaining in a trial, you get to see where the hatch is as long as you're within a 32-meter radius of it. Now, this might help you escape in those scenarios, but personally, I don't really think this deserves a spot in your build at all. The killer can also close the hatch as well, remember, and you have to be the last one remaining. So in my opinion, on its own, I don't really rate this perk. I'm going to be putting this in it very bad. After that, we have Lightweight. With Lightweight, your scratch marks at max level go away 3 seconds faster. Now, this sounds quite good, but in-game, it's not as good as it seems. If a killer's got a visual track on you, then this perk doesn't really help you out. It's disappointing because this sounds better than what it is, but in my opinion, this perk is quite poor. After that, we have Feng Min's Life. With Life, if you fast vault a pallet or a window, etc., you get a big speed boost for up to 3 seconds. This is an exhaustion perk. This is my favorite exhaustion perk. I think it's great for getting out of chases because you're going to use it when you're in one. Again, this is dependent on how you play. Some will hate this perk, some will love it. In my opinion, this perk is very good. Is it worth leveling for? Absolutely. This deserves a spot in the great list. Moving on from that one, we have Lucky Break. With Lucky Break, when you're injured, you don't leave any pools of blood for up to 180 seconds. But after that, that's used up that perk, then it's no longer useful. I think this perk would be great on indoor maps. The current amount of outdoor maps, it's not really too great because I find that killers don't really necessarily find you because of pools of blood, for instance. That's more on indoor maps. But I like the concept though. So like I'm putting this into poor, but not necessarily because it's a bad perk. It's more for the fact of it will only help you out in some situations, if you get what I mean. Next up, we have Metal of Man from Ash. With Metal of Man, if you take 3 protection hits, so like if a killer is holding a survivor, etc., they all add up. And after 3 protection hits, this perk becomes active. The next hit that would put you into the dying state from when you got injured, it ignores it. The next time that you get back to full health, your aura is revealed to the killer when you are further than 16 meters away. It does increase the odds of you being the obsession, however. If you're looking for a solo queue, you know, kind of will this benefit you sort of perk, personally, I don't really think so. I'm going to be putting this into poor. Next up, we have No Mither. With No Mither, you start the match injured and you cannot get healed at all, which is very dangerous. But you don't leave any pools of blood. Your injury noises are reduced by 50%, but you can recover when you're in the dying state. So it's basically like unlimited unbreakable. Is this a perk worth running? Absolutely not. It is very dangerous. It's a bit of a meme perk, to be honest. It's not going to help you out whatsoever. Don't bother leveling it. After that, we have No One Left Behind. Once the exit gates are opened, you can get 100% more blood points for altruism. Once the exit gates are open, you can and also unhook people 50% faster, and all other survivor auras are revealed to you. If you're looking for a perk to give you more points regularly in your build, We're Gonna Live Forever from David is a lot better in my opinion. Is this perk worth leveling? Not really. I think I'd rather level We're Gonna Live Forever. After this, we have Object of Obsession. It's an aura reading perk. It's very risky, but also high reward at the same time. You get to see the killer's aura, and the killer gets to see your aura as long as you're outside the terror radius of each other there. Now, it does increase your chance of being the obsession, but it is very useful because you get to see who the killer is and where they are. It is quite a strong perk, but I don't like how it puts you in danger. Is this a perk worth leveling? Only if you're experienced. If you're not very confident and you're not confident in chasers, this perk will be more of a burden than a benefit to you. All in all, is this a perk worth leveling? In my opinion, this perk is decent. After that, we have Off the Record. With Off the Record, once you are unhooked, Off the Record activates for about 80 seconds. When this perk is active, your aura will not be shown to the killer, and you essentially get Iron Will, where you don't make any injury noises. Now, I'm trying to think that there's not really many situations where the killer finds you because of your aura when you get off the hook. It's kind of like a more limited Iron Will when you get off the hook. I'm going to put this one in at poor. After that, we have Open-Handed. This increases the range of aura reading perks by 8 meters. And this applies to your team and yourself. Is this a perk worth running? No. Is it really worth running a perk just to have an extra 8 meters? I'm going to be putting this perk in at very bad. After that, we have Pharmacy. With Pharmacy, you search chests a lot faster, make less noise when you're doing it, and you are guaranteed a green medkit when you open that chest. Now, that's kind of useful, having a medkit. I would just say run a medkit instead, really. Is it worth having a perk there for that? In my opinion, you're wasting a perk slot, really. I'm going to put this in at poor. Not very bad, because a green medkit is great. After that, we have Plunderer's Instinct. With Plunderers, you see the aura of items and chests that are close to you within 22 meters, and also greatly increases the chance of finding a decent item from a chest. If your teammate beat you to this and get the item, then this kind of is a bit of a pointless perk. But I'm going to put this in at poor, just because it might help you survive by getting medkits sometimes, but it's not really worth leveling. Next up, we have Poised. Once you complete a generator, you leave no scratch marks for 10 seconds. In my opinion, super situational. Only good if the killer is near you when you're doing this gen. There's very minimal times where this will be useful, but 10 seconds is a decent amount. So I'm going to put this in at poor. It's not really that great, but it's a bit better than very bad. Next up, we have Premonition. With Premonition, when you look in the killer's direction, the perk lights up and you get a noise notification, and has a cooldown of 30 seconds. It never ever helps me out ever when I've ever used this perk. I get to know roughly where the killer is in that proximity. That provides no information to me because I don't know how close they are, They might just be walking past, not even going in my direction. I think spinach is a way better perk and also provides other extra bonuses as well. In my opinion, this perk is very bad. Spinach, way better. After that, we have Prove Thyself. So with Prove Thyself, this perk is about doing gens with teammates. You can get a maximum bonus of 45% when you're working with teammates, and it's 15% per survivor. I'm going to put this perk in at decent. And the only reason I'm putting it at decent and not great is just because in a solo queue, you might not be doing gens as much with teammates. After that, we have Quick and Quiet. With Quick and Quiet, fast vaulting anything, lockers, windows, or pallets is completely silent, and that refreshes every 20 seconds. It can confuse newer killers sometimes, experienced killers, and can get you out of chases. In my opinion, I'm going to put this in at poor because it does come with some use as well, and regular use also. After that, we have Red Herring. With Red Herring, after repairing a generator for 3 seconds and you jump into a locker, it makes a big bang noise and distracts the killer, and they might go toward it. You can do this once every 40 seconds. Is this perk worth leveling or running? No, it's a meme perk. It's not going to benefit you if you're trying to survive. No, just don't. Next up, we have Repressed Alliance. After you've repaired any generators for a maximum of 60 seconds, you can block that generator and it can't get progressed or regressed by the killer. Survivors get to see that aura of that generator as well, and it blocks that for 30 seconds. Well, this perk is good against stuff like Pop Goes the Weasel when, say, you've only got like one gen left, and you're trying to push it, and he's got Pop Goes the Weasel, he's coming to the generator, and you're like, oh no, it's going to regress loads. You can save that by saving it at 90% when you would have kicked it and it would have regressed loads. 30 seconds is an extremely long time, however, and I don't like that. Maybe 10 seconds, this perk would be a little bit better. I'm going to put this in at 4. There's situations where this might come in useful. After that, we have Resilience. With Resilience, you get a increase of maximum up to 9% with repairing, healing, sabotaging, unhooking, vaulting, cleansing, gate opening, pretty much everything when you're injured. And if you play when you're injured quite a lot, like myself or most people when they have Iron Will, you get a great, that is 9%. That is a lot, you know, especially in vaulting and stuff like that. I'm going to put this perk in at decent. I would put it higher, but I'm also considering as well newer players and if you are comfortable being injured. After that, we have Saboteur. With Saboteur, you get 2 break hooks without a toolbox, but this does have a cooldown of up to 60 seconds. You also get to see auras of all the hooks when the survivor's getting picked up as well. You get 1 use out of it every 60 seconds, and if you're going to be doing this, you're trying to essentially stop the killer from hooking someone, but once you do that, that's going to go to another hook. I'd rather personally bring a toolbox. This perk's really not that great at all, to be honest, so I'm going to be putting this at very bad. After that, we have Second Wind. Once you have healed another survivor for 1 health state, this perk becomes active, and the next time that you are unhooked or unhook yourself, you can essentially automatically heal yourself from injured to healthy after 30 seconds. But during that time, you are broken. And this perk sounds good, but it really isn't. 30 seconds after an unhook is an extremely long time, and you can't get healed during that time. And if a survivor has unhooked you and the killer's nowhere near, they could have healed you with Will Make It. Normal heals, for instance. It's just really not good at all. And I don't think this perk's worth running at all. Next up, we've got the good old self-care. With self-care, you can heal yourself without a medkit, but you do increase medkit self-heals by up to 20%. This one is going to be so varied. So many of you will agree and disagree with this. This is dependent on how you play and how confident you are when you're injured. In my opinion, this is a bit of a selfish perk. You become too distracted on healing yourself when you could get heals from teammates, etc. And it takes so long. In my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it is sometimes useful for people. I'm putting self-kit in at decent. There's just many better ways to heal yourself, in my opinion. After that, we have Slippery Meat. With Slippery Meat, you get 3 extra unhook attempts when you're on a hook, and it does increase your chance of getting off the hook by 4%. In this footage, I try and use Slippery Meat, and did I get off? No. And it also does promote you to try and get off the hook, meaning that it reduces the time on the hook. It's an awful perk. Don't run it. This icon is the old icon, though, just in case you guys got a bit confused. It's terrible. Don't run this perk. After that, we've got Small Game. You get a notification with the perk and auditory when you look in the direction of a trap set by the killer. So like trappers traps or hags traps. And even when I've had this perk, it says, you've just looked toward their trap. I still can't find their trap. It doesn't say, I don't get a visual confirmation. I just roughly that area. So in my opinion, I don't really rate this perk. So very bad. Next up, we have Soul Survivor. With Soul Survivor, your aura cannot be revealed to the killer within a maximum range of 24 meters for each killed and sacrificed survivor. It does also increase the odds of you being the obsession. The more people that are killed, the bigger the range for it to ignore seeing your aura, for instance, etc. This perk is dependent on the killer's perks, can sometimes help you out in that regard. So I'm going to be putting this perk in at poor. Following up from that, we have Solidarity. When you are healing somebody without a med kit, you also heal yourself at a 50% conversion rate as well. So if you healed for somebody fully, you are then half healed. That's quite useful because it's less time healing. So with that being said, I think that Solidarity is, I'm going to put into poor. After that, we have Soul Guard. You essentially get borrowed time with that sort of protection hit for 8 seconds after you have been healed or have recovered from the dying state on the floor. So if a killer then tries to hit you after you've recovered from the dying state, instead of going back down again, you get a protection hit and you have 20 seconds to mend yourself. However, if the killer has a hex and you have the curse status effect icon on the right of your screen, you can fully recover from the dying state. Is this a perk worth leveling? Sometimes quite hard to pull off, but it is extremely strong. It's a very good perk. This perk is very good and it's very strong as well. So also a good get out of jail card. So I'm going to be putting this perk in at great. It is very, very good. After that, we have Spine Chill. You get a notification when the killer is looking at you within 36 meters. And usually when they look at you, they're kind of coming toward your area. And when Spine Chill is active, so the killer is kind of looking at you or going towards you, your vaulting, unhooking, cleansing exit gates, pretty much all speeds are increased by 6%. This perk's great for 2 reasons. You get the killer thing where you can see that the killer's coming toward your area, so you can kind of hide or do something. And also you get the faster like vault speed and chases, etc., which is great. Spine Chill is a fantastic perk. Is it worth leveling and having for yourself in a solo queue, etc.? Absolutely. It's great. It's great for new people. It's great for just pretty much all-round levels, really. So this is definitely a great perk to consider using. And after that, we have the Exhaustion perk Sprint Burst. When you start sprinting, you get a big speed boost, up to 150% of your normal running speed for 3 seconds. It is an Exhaustion perk, so of course you get the Exhaustion timer. But a lot of people end up like walking around the entire map. That's not how you use this perk. You 99 it, which is kind of like when it's fully almost recovered, keep running, and then like when the killer starts to chase you again, bosh, you get another speed boost. So it is a little bit tricky to use. Is it a good Exhaustion perk and is it worth leveling? Yes, it is very, very good. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. So I'm going to be putting this in at great. And next up we have Stakeout. So with Stakeout, for each 15 seconds you're in the killer's terror radius, but you're not in a chase, you get some tokens, okay? And with these tokens, any successful skill check becomes a great skill check, and you get a slight progression bonus, and it consumes a token. 1% progression bonus, you know, maximum, and then you've got 4 tokens and you've got to be in the killer's terror radius. No, it's really not great. Not a good perk in my opinion. And then we have Streetwise. Streetwise reduces the item consumption rate up to 25% at max level for you and your teammates, as long as they're with you within 8 meters. Is this perk useful and worth leveling? Yes, if you are using items. Obviously, if not, it's not useful. But if you're playing solo queue, for instance, and you've got a med kit or a toolbox, then this perk would be a little bit useful. I'm in between poor and decent, but I think I'm going to be putting this one in at poor, just because obviously you need an item, etc. And I think that there could be better perks to run instead. After that, we have Technician. Generator repairing noises is decreased by 8 meters. If you miss a skill check, it usually make a bang noise and alert the killer to your area. But with Technician, this won't happen. A very useful perk for beginners. After that, not really so much. In my opinion, this perk isn't really worth running for majority of players, only for new players. So all in all levels considered, I'm going to be putting this perk in at poor. Only really good for beginners, to be honest. Apart from that, not really. After that, we have Tenacity. With Tenacity, you can crawl when you're in a dying state and recover at the same time. That can be useful for crawling to pallets, etc., or crawling to teammates. Good in a perk build, but on its own, it's okay, because it allows you to get underneath a pallet, which calls for a big game-changing experience there, because does the killer pick you up? Do they wait, etc.? So I'm going to be putting tenacity in at decent. Moving on from that one, we have this is not happening. With this is not happening, when you are injured, great skill checks are increased in size, meaning that they're a lot easier to hit. It only happens when you're injured. So I personally don't really find this perk useful. It sounds okay, but it's not really that great. It's not worth a perk slot in my opinion. So I'm going to be putting this in at very bad. Moving on from that one, we've got unbreakable. When you're in the dying state, you can actually recover yourself without being healed by a teammate, and it also increases the rate at which you recover by up to 35% at max level. Now this can only happen once per match where you recover, but it's extremely game changing when it works. This is quite a meta perk. You see a lot of people running it. It is a extremely strong perk, and that's the reason why I'm putting this in insane. And following on from that one, we have urban evasion. With urban evasion, you can crouch walk 100% faster. This perk is extremely useful against people like the hag, etc. And it is great for immersed players. Now, it is quite a nice perk to use, and a lot of people will like to use it. But does it benefit you? That's the question. I'm going to put this in at decent. And the reason is because when a killer is coming towards your area, you can like crouch and rotate around pallets or blockades quite well. And also, obviously, with the hag thing, it is quite useful. This depends on your playstyle, personally, I think. Moving on from that one, we have up the ante. With up the ante, for each survivor that's still alive, it gives you 3% luck to all survivors. And with this on, you're still probably not going to unhook yourself, which is kind of a reason that you'd run that perk, I guess. Really not worth running at all, in my opinion. Furthermore, we have vigil. With vigil, you get to recover from exhaustion, hemorrhage, mangled, hindered, and blindness stats effects 20% faster. And that also applies to your teammates as long as they're quite close to you. It's a nice add-on in perk builds, but on its own, not really worth running, to be honest. But it's not awful, so I'm going to be putting this into pool. Next up, we have Felix's Visionary. With Visionary, you get to see the auras of generators within 32 meters. However, when a generator is completed, this perk deactivates for 16 seconds. Is it worth leveling a perk that allows you to see where gens are, but also gets blocked after that gen gets finished? In my opinion, not a perk worth running. A little tip is that if you look up at a generator, if the lights are flashing, then they can be repaired, and if they are fully bright, then they are repaired already. Then we have wake up. Once the exit gates are powered, you get to see the exit gates within 128 meters. And then when you're opening the exit gates, you get to see all auras of survivors up to 128 meters. It's very situational in that regard. And of course, you have to get to the end game as well. So in my opinion, this perk is very bad. I just don't really think this would help you, really. After that, we have Will Make It. When you unhook a survivor, you can heal them and any other person at 100% of the normal healing speed. So it's very fast, and I think this perk is absolutely incredible. Is this a perk worth leveling? Absolutely. You can heal the person off the hook very fast, but not only that, bear in mind that this lasts for 90 seconds, which is a very long time. If you come across somebody later on that's injured, you can heal them extremely fast, and I think that is very, very good. And I'm not gonna lie, there's not really any downside to this perk whatsoever. You can heal anyone at 100% the healing rate. 90 seconds after that is extremely good. In my opinion, I don't even think this is great. I think this is an insane perk. Only better than borrowed time because it just can't really get counted. I think it's a fantastic altruism perk, so consider that or borrowed time. And after that, we have We're Gonna Live Forever. With We're Gonna Live Forever, this is a perk that gives you more blood points for taking protection hits. Essentially, anything that protects your teammates. So like stunning a killer when they have them on the shoulder, taking a protection hit, etc. And not only that, you can also heal a dying survivor at 100% speed as well. We've buffed this recently and you can just get more points easier. I think this is a fantastic perk for all levels. In my opinion, this is the best perk for getting more blood points faster. A great perk for anyone that's new to the game. Medium level in the game that just needs blood points. In this game, you need a lot of blood points to progress and get better. The amount of points you can get with this perk. Bear in mind, when you play Survivor, you get less points usually than when you would when you play Killer. So I think this perk's fantastic. This is quite tough because I want to say insane, but this is only dependent if you need points. So I'm going to put it into great. I would put it in insane, but only because if you are an experienced player and you've got a lot of blood points and you don't really necessarily, you might not need them. So great perk, absolutely amazing. And then we have Windows of Opportunity. With Windows of Opportunity, it highlights breakable walls and any vaults, etc. and pallets in your 20-meter radius which is very, very useful if you're new to the game and trying to learn loops and where are my safe zones, etc. It's a fantastic perk for beginners and medium level players, or even experienced players who aren't comfortable with looping. So is this a perk worth leveling? I think if you're not confident in loops or chases, absolutely, it's great. Of course, this is dependent on how comfortable you are, but I think for majority of players, this is a pretty good perk. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic perk, so I'm going to be putting this in at great. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my DBD survivor perk list. Let me know in the comments below, and let's have a discussion whether you disagree or agree with this list. I'm sure this is going to be very opinionated. And I'm interested to see what you guys are going to say. Be sure to come and join our Discord. All the links are in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.